There's a new trend that the younger generation have stolen from basketball called "we're done with the 90s", where players like Zinedine Zidane have been getting cooked for their goal numbers and any slight gaps in their resume. Well, I am here to set the record straight. Zinedine Zidane is an all-timer. Anyone who disagrees watches games with what's-its in one hand and SofaScore open on the phone in the other hand. Look at the way he has bodies dropping like they've just been hit by that red shell on Mario Kart. Look how he ends careers with such elegance, driving with the ball and taking players out one by one like it's Squid Game. How can you watch this magician with your eyes and decide that he's overrated because some kid is giving you stats without context? Guys will talk about his poor goal record with Cannes, but they won't tell you that it's because he was cooking as a dynamic right back at the start of his career. They speak about how he got sent off in his final game in the 2006 World Cup final, but no comment on his performances during that tournament to drag his country there in the first place. Everyone already knows about that iconic Brazil game, but before we get to the end of his career, let me take you guys all the way back to the 90s. Zidane was born in Marseille to Algerian parents in 1972, in a rough neighborhood known for its crime and high unemployment. By the age of 5, he was kicking ball with kids of all ages in the square, and was quickly integrated into local junior teams. He was inspired by Maradona's magical World Cup in 1986, and shortly after he was scouted for the Cannes Academy, while initially just there on holiday. As I said in the introduction, the Zidane at Cannes stylistically was not far from the Zizou we all know and love, except he was playing all over the pitch. This guy would play right back and be flying into crunching tackles, barging guys off the ball, and still incorporating that insane dribbling and flicks over people's heads. It took him a while to lock down that central spot because he had constant disciplinary issues, often punching up guys for insulting his ghetto background. A sign of things to come. If you know, you know. Regardless, he bagged his first goal in February 1991, and it was now impossible to keep this guy shackled at right back. His technical prowess stuck out like a sore thumb, and in his first full season at Cannes, he elevated them to Europe with a 4th place finish, the highest since their relegation back in 1948. After 71 games with Cannes, Zizou decided it was time for a greater challenge with Bordeaux. Here he'd form a monumental midfield trio with football legends Lizarazu and Dugarry. He began to stomp his authority on games more and more, and the aura that we speak about was already developing now that he was able to demonstrate his talents in the Champions League. Although he was lighting up Ligue 1, it was a quarter-final tie against Italian powerhouse Milan that saw him begin to enter world-class territory. This was a Milan team consisting of iconic defenders like Maldini and Baresi, French legends like Vieira and Desailly, a team that was led up front by current Ballon d'Or holder George Weah. Yet despite coming to Bordeaux 2-0 up on aggregate, Zidane and his boys sent them packing with a 3-0 win to end the period of Milan dominance in Europe. Performances like that would naturally have teams around Europe opening their eyes like the meerkat from Neighbourhood Watch. He was offered to Newcastle for 1.2 million, but these guys fumbled the bag and said he wasn't good enough for the English First Division. It could be worse though. Kevin Keegan knew ball and wanted him at Blackburn, but was told by his chairman that there's no point bringing Zidane when they already had Tim Sherwood. For the modern fans, that's like saying, nah, we don't need Iniesta, we have Captain Jordan Henderson. Zidane ended up winning Ligue 1 Player this season, and it was time to dip again. Juventus acquired the services of Zidane fresh off a Champions League win in 1996 to bolster their already stacked midfield of Didier Deschamps and Antonio Conte. Now again, here's what the stat merchants won't tell you. He was deployed in yet another new role, playing as a deep-lying playmaker in that trio. It wasn't until Antonio Conte got injured that manager Lippi switched to a 4-4-2 and gave Zizou full freedom to dominate and form a scintillating link-up with Del Piero to immediately win the 96-97 Serie A title and the Intercontinental Cup. Del Piero said himself that Zidane was an extraordinary talent but was far from selfish, doing whatever it took for the team to win. And yet, on an individual level, his performances earned him the Serie A Foreign Player of the Year award at the first time of asking. Unfortunately, the Champions League trophy eluded him as they'd be on the receiving end of a 3-1 loss to Borussia Dortmund. The next year, he won the league title back-to-back, but again lost in the final, this time to Real Madrid. And with that, it was time for the World Cup. Zidane had already scored a brace on his France debut back in 1994, but by this point he was now France's poster boy. His flicks and roulettes had defenders folding like when you dip biscuit in coffee. If he had to go machine for machine, he was ready for a physical battle. Although he didn't score in France's road to the final, he was providing crucial assists and having a massive impact beyond GA numbers. They'd go on to meet Brazil in the final, and all the talk was about whether R9 would be fit enough to cook. But it was Zinedine Zidane who stole the show. We're used to him showing the Algerian flair and elegance, but this was different. He scored 2 bullet headers from 2 set pieces to put France 2-0 up before Vieira set up Petit to complete a 3-0 win as France won their first ever World Cup. And he had the honour of collecting his Ballon d'Or. And yet Zidane himself suggested that he was even better 2 years later when France won Euro 2000. A free kick against Spain and a penalty to see them eliminate Portugal on golden goal was enough to see him named Player of the Tournament. His return to Juventus was not as enjoyable. They'd finish second in the 2000-2001 season and get booted out in the Champions League group stages after Zidane was suspended for headbutting a Hamburg player. Where have we seen this before? Anyway, he still managed to pick up Serie A Foreign Player of the Season again, but his lofty ambition could only be matched by his next employers, the Galacticos of Real Madrid. He signed in 2001 for a world record fee of about £70 million, which was insanity back then. Florentino Perez was on a mission to build a team of the best superstars on the planet. It was in literally his first season that he scored that iconic volley to beat Leverkusen as he picked up his first ever Champions League trophy. He was now dazzling in front of the entire world, in a team that had names like Figo, Beckham, Ronaldo Nazario. The fans came to watch him. He was the hub of all things great. Surely enough, the following season he led Madrid to the La Liga title, winning countless individual awards from fans, teammates and opponents. Alfredo Di Stefano, a legend who we've had previous lessons on already, was quoted as saying, "He dominates the ball and plays as though he had silk gloves on each foot." This is not some random TikTok freak trying to get views, by the way. This is the original king of Real Madrid saying this. Left foot, right foot, Zidane had it all. Florentino Perez was trying to build a dynasty, but it just so happened that they were now competing against a Barca, with Ronaldinho and a certain Lionel Messi coming through in the mid-2000s. In the 05-06 season, Madrid would end the season trophyless, but on an individual level, that did not stop Zidane from cooking. He'd bag a hat-trick against Sevilla and end the season as their second top scorer and assist provider. Not that it mattered much, just looking at this footage should be enough to show you the level of player we're talking about here. In an era where people didn't watch football via Excel spreadsheets. When he announced that the 06 World Cup would be the end of his career, the Madrid fans were almost in mourning. He'd played over 150 times for a Galactico team that had a ruthless owner ready to boot out anyone that wasn't playing up to standards. In his final game, the 80,000 fans in the Bernabeu held up a sign saying, "Thanks for the magic." Do you think when certain guys retire, they're going to hold up a banner saying, "Thank you for the 0.87 goals per game ratio and overperformance of XG by 21%? No! His legacy was already set in stone, but it was time to see if the magician could pull off a miracle for France in his last act. The French team was in turmoil, with legends retiring left, right and centre as they scraped qualification. In fact, Zidane himself wasn't even planning to play until the coach persuaded him to come out of retirement and save them as captain. He lit up the stage once again, and it was in the knockouts that a now 34-year-old Zinedine Zidane put on that historical masterclass against Brazil and assisted Henry's winner. To do what he was doing against players arguably in their prime is a testament to the timelessness of this player. He dictated play with such ease and was sending guys to go buy him baguette. His whole career seemed like deja vu, because after scoring against Spain again, he then scored a penalty to knock out Portugal just like last time to send them to that infamous final against Italy. This brother had the audacity to panenka a penalty to put France 1-0 up, and you want to talk about not doing it on the big stage. Then came the controversy. In a dispute with Materazzi, he turned around out of nowhere and headbutted him in the chest with just 10 minutes left of extra time. It felt like it was the first ever internet meme, with the amount of gifs that were coming out of him KOing Materazzi. His career ended just how it started, as a young, short-tempered teenager with his 14th red card. It's quite sad that the last ever image we see of him in his playing career is him walking past the World Cup trophy after being sent off. Would France have won with him? We'll never know. But don't let it take away anything from his illustrious career. Fortunately, he went on to become an all-time coach, winning 3 straight Champions Leagues, so his football brain can never be called into question. Some players don't need 500 goals to be regarded as greats. Many would even argue he's the best midfielder of all time. Either way, hopefully you guys learned something new today. If you did, leave a like on the video, let me know where he ranks in your top 3 or 5 midfielders ever, and subscribe for new lessons every Monday. Class dismissed. Bosh.